Hello, and thank you for listening to AI SuccessFactors Podcast. We help enterprise adopt artificial intelligence. This is Samuel Matthew, your host. In simple terms, AI adoption is a three-step process: identifying the right AI opportunity, tying it back to a business value, and aligning it to a business goal. If you're a leader, needs help demonstrating ROI on your existing AI initiatives, or want to get a buy-in for a new AI initiative, you are in the right place. Our mission is to empower enterprise leaders to navigate, transform, and lead by applying AI into their business. In this show, we interview analytical and business leaders who successfully implemented AI into their business. In the conversations we feature, you will learn how these companies reach strategic business goals. It's a pleasure and privilege for our listeners to develop a point of view from the insights shared in this podcast. Today, we're joined by Archana Misra, an accomplished leader driving AI adoption and innovation at scale. Archana is the AI Practice Director at Jacobs, a $14 billion company operating globally with over 54,000 employees. She leads efforts to develop AI maturity models, responsible AI frameworks, and enterprise adoption strategies. With a total of over 20 years of experience, Archana has driven initiatives in AI governance, cloud migration, and IT transformation. Her work has impacted industries like engineering, energy, and infrastructure. Archana's leadership shows how organizations can use AI to create value and achieve sustainable growth. In this episode of AI SuccessFactors, we explore strategies for driving the adoption and maturity of AI in enterprises. Together with Archana Misra, we'll dwell into practical frameworks for AI maturity, responsible innovation, and enterprise transformation. From fostering AI adoption in complex systems to leveraging generative AI for business impact, this conversation is packed with insights for enterprise leaders, CXOs, and AI practitioners. Tune in to discover actionable strategies for navigating the evolving landscape and building a sustainable future. Here is our conversation. Hey, Archana, I'm really excited to have you here on the show today because of two reasons. First, it is our first episode of 2025. It's a perfect way to kick off what I believe will be a groundbreaking year for AI and technology. Secondly, your incredible experience and expertise and leadership that makes this conversation even more exciting. Leading the AI practice and driving adoption in a $14 billion company operating in a global scale is a significant achievement. The stakes are high when doing business in an engineering and infrastructure space. The bigger the organization, the more complex systems become. With that said, let's explore some practical strategies and insights for fostering AI adoption and advancing AI maturity models. Archana, how do you approach fostering AI adoption in organizations that are in an early stage of their digital transformation journey?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sam. I think for the organizations that are new to the digital journey, what I would highly recommend, is thinking of their data journey. They also think about their infrastructure strategy, their enterprise architecture strategy, cybersecurity strategy. In fact, also looking at the aspects of legal and compliance, right, in a holistic way, having maybe a council, right, or having a center of excellence for AI would help them look at it holistically. Something like that to start with.
Okay. Because there are some industries or verticals where adoption seems to be inherently complex. Do you see anything specific in engineering and infrastructure industry compared to any other industry?
Yeah, I think every industry has their own nuances, as they say, right? Very peculiarity. In the engineering space, there are a lot of engineering companies, especially in the US, right, who are working for the federal government, or they're working for industries or other clients that have sensitive information, right? Or maybe they may have more concerns than more regulations versus the other. So in those areas, I think you have to be particularly very cognizant of as you're bringing the technology. So that's the variance in engineering companies as well. I think a lot of times you're working for a client that is more sensitive. So being thoughtful of that, right? When as you in your own organization use AIs, you'd have to be thinking about what is the implication on the partners that I work with or the clients that I work with.
Because many organizations, when they start AI adoption, the question is everybody look for long-term AI investments, but some quick wins are important to gain the executive buy-in and show some results. So how do you prioritize the quick wins versus long-term AI investments to maintain stakeholder confidence?
I think that's why a strategy is very important. You have to think of it, and every organization may have different strategy, just like you said, right? Some organization may want to show that ROI quickly to even get the buy-in from their own executives, right? For that matter. In other organizations, there might be an executive buy-in, but you may not have a long-term thought process of how my company or other companies that we serve will benefit. So I think having that strategy about what do you want to, and what are the timelines for you, right? How much investment you want to make up ahead. Do you want to invest in proof of concepts first? A lot of organizations do that. Let's try it out for these scenarios in a small scale and then scale it up. So that's what I think is going to be pretty important for different scale of organizations.
So, Archana, you've been working in this industry for long enough, and you've been in the AI space for a pretty long time. You have seen how it's evolving. So, what are the lessons that you have learned over time when you're adopting AI to an organization?
Yeah, so I think adopting AI, and this is not a lesson just learned by myself. I've talked to a lot of people, right, in the industry. They have the same thinking that you need to think of it from the ground level, right? All organic adoption to also have executive buy-in, right? So when you're thinking about adopting AI, there needs to be a cultural change. There needs to be the top-down leadership approach on how the strategy for AI is going to be, how we will embrace. These are very important things that I've learned, and I feel like bringing them, if you can partner both of these and you can tackle it from these both angles, you can be more successful with your AI implementations.
Great. And how do you approach it? So do you tie up some ROI to every single initiatives, or it is more aspirational or capability building? Because I've seen different organizations approach it differently. Some organizations are clearly looking for an ROI in terms of dollar value. There are organizations wanted to look at the capability, building the capability over time. So what do you see?
The nature of the companies, like you said, are wanting to make their employees more productive. And in those cases, ROI is very harder to measure because there's a soft benefits, right? And these would be something that come across there. So you might have to do like employee surveys on what the impact the AI technology is bringing to them. In other industries, sometimes you're building tools and technologies for your customers where there is a direct ROI, right? The investment that you made, you're getting a return out of it. Again, being mindful of that is where you want to approach. And that's why I think we earlier said executive buy-in and executive strategy, right? Where you want to invest and what's your goal is pretty important. Most organizations that I've seen have both goals, right? They also want to deliver something. They may be a product company, they may be a solution company, so they're delivering, and they're also making their employees more productive with AI tools. Because at the end of the day, the more productive your employees are, it will show into your overall ROI. Harder to measure, but that's how organizations are approaching it.
Yeah, it always should be a kind of right balance between those two, right? Capability building and ROI. Everything is not able to be measured in dollar value, right?
Correct. And it can be the nature of what you do as well. There are some companies, I would say a consulting company is a great example for that. Your people are your assets. So as the more productive they are, the quicker they can do things and they can really come up with this proposal versus taking 3 days, 4 days. Now you can do it in a day. There are so many solutions that can help you bring knowledge from different sources and let your people get to prepare a good solution out of it. So that's where you're building your asset, which is your people. In other places, you have a product that you're developing.
Archana, as organizations navigate the challenges of AI adoption, we are seeing a growing focus on Gen AI as a transformative tool within enterprises recently. And let's talk a little bit about that. And what are the most impactful enterprise use cases for Gen AI, particularly in the sustainability focused sectors like yours?
I think generative AI is the beauty of, we all know, the chat GPTs of the world. We've all been used to it now as modern day employees. The benefit, the impact on a certain type of industry, especially in the sustainability world, I feel like is industries where you could really, with the predictive analytics, which was already there, now being able to ask that question in a human language and being able to say, I have this problem based on the data set. A lot of companies already have all that database of information, but being able to pull it together and being able to come up with a solution, at least at the first level. I have this problem. How can I go solve this? And it gives you a set of answers, right? And then we as humans take an understanding of that information and see how that's going to help us long term. Is it implementable, not implementable? That's obviously for us to decide. That's where I feel different industries, they could be transportation, they could be water industry, they could be climate change related, these patterns that you can now understand the data, do some predictive analytics, and then being able to ask questions about it in a natural language.
So what do you think Gen AI, does it reach to the maturity for enterprise applications? People have different answers, depends on who we ask this question.
See, I'm a big believer of following the maturity frameworks at the industry level. And there are already a few that have come out. NIST has a very robust risk-related framework for AI. There are European Union has come up with some AI guidelines. And although all of it may not apply to each industry, but there are excerpts of those that you can apply to your organization. So I would highly recommend, if you're thinking of getting more mature with your AI journey, trying to look into some of those frameworks and learn from them and how you would apply into your organization. If you have a good catalog of all that you're doing in AI, know which models you're using and what type of models, what type of data that it takes, what it does with that model, and then have a feedback loop of seeing, is this tool bringing me benefit, having that feedback loop. I would say that these are some of the ground rules you would apply to any technology, but now that with AI, you think more, there are more cross-functional aspects of it. So when you're looking at the maturity model, you're looking at your data maturity, you're looking at your organizational. That's why I was talking earlier about enterprise architecture, right? Do you have a foundational enterprise architecture where what you're bringing into your organization, how you use it, a framework of using it, and all of that. Now you just apply it in a new space.
4 or 5 years ago, you see organizations started adopting in a bigger scale. And in last couple of years where Gen AI really kicked off, and how does Gen AI adoption fit into this organization's broader AI maturity journey? I'm sure you would have made the AI maturity journey framework, all the goals and everything set years before. Now that the Gen AI come in, so what the changes it has made? Or
yeah, I feel like this is a very revolutionizing change that has happened, and everyone's very excited. The main thing is that you're putting some of the impactful tools in the hands of your employees, right? There's a broader reach. Whenever we were doing predictive analytics or AI before machine learning, that was at the system level. Your engineers were interfacing with, your data analysts were interacting it with. Now you have some of your employees that are pro users of technology, and they are being able to do all. So learning coming back to the adoption portion, Sam, I think it's very important to educate, bring that culture, bring that knowledge into your organization. It is very important, in at least from what I've seen in the industry so far, that the adoption, you have to really create that culture for adoption.
Understood. Yeah, good that you touched upon the responsible use. That was my next topic. So as we explore Gen AI, the conversation naturally extend to just happened it into the responsible use of LLM. Like earlier, like I said, the shift earlier a few years ago, we were like, because computer vision applications, LLM, we haven't thought LLM will kick off this fast, but a lot of LLM applications, the responsive use and ethics comes into play. And let's talk a little bit about that. What are the fundamental elements of responsible AI framework, and how do they complement organizations' maturity model?
I think some of the things that are really important, being ethical practice, being compliant in the industry that you are, your security risks with the LLMs that you're using, how do they take your data, and what is the large language model going to do with it? Is it learning from it, or is you're able to do some grounding and just there are different ways of utilizing the LLMs, and understanding that is very important. When you say the changes with generative AI, that's learning, is also understanding which LLM works in which way, and what is good for your organization.
So is there a tool or methodologies do you find most effective when auditing AI systems for compliance or ethical considerations?
Yeah, so there are quite a few models that have already come up. You'd see a lot of consulting companies coming up with their model, and obviously the frameworks that we just discussed a little while ago, they have tools inbuilt into being able to evaluate. What I've seen is work a lot is thinking of all the components, who are your users, thinking of what data you're going to be using in this large language, interacting with the large language model. You also want to think about how does my data then gets used. What is the accuracy? What is important to me right now is the answer. How I could be in a health industry and the response could be about a medication. In that case, accuracy is very important, right? So you know where you want to focus. If you're building your own LLMs, you want to be very focused on those things, right? If you are in an industry where it's just productivity related, where a simple mistake, accuracy may or may not, you could get a wrong answer, and the person who's utilizing that has the choice to use it or not use it, right? In that case, it's not, your accuracy may not be as important. There are a lot of tools right now to be even able to monitor what your employees are putting in your prompts, right? And if you have a good DLP policy, data lifecycle policy, or insider risk policy, it could all apply to what goes into your prompts as well. So maybe that's how you could monitor it as well.
These regulations are still evolving in this space. So I assume these initiatives are company on their individual level, not as a regulatory requirement at the moment, right?
But a lot of organizations have started asking their vendors about what's your maturity in AI? How do you handle? What type of AI tools that you use? So being prepared about it is very important. How you do AI, how your employees use, because when they are working with you, they're actually sharing some of their data, right? They might be NDAs and those kind of things. The compliance, I think California in the US, there are not a lot of parameters of how you should use AI, but each industry is coming up with their own. And I think that's only going to grow. And some of us may think of it, obviously, it's an extra step to take, but I feel like this would help us mature in a way that we can actually use it I've often use this analogy of playing with fire. I feel like when you're using some of these generative AI tools, you're playing with fire, you can actually cause more damage than bring value. So understanding and being able to use, I feel like these compliance guardrails are very important for us to be able to develop a mature product that is beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, because at the moment there is not much of regulatory standards, and definitely it's going to evolve over time. Then another thing is that how hard that would be, then how you balance the AI innovation and how you comply with these regulatory standards, how you balance between those two, right?
Very true. Yeah.
Especially with industries like with the stringent regulations now, finance, healthcare, all these areas.
Yeah, I think it is very important to start thinking about these things. That's why having a governance framework like we spoke about earlier, or a risk maturity framework with AI early on, maybe having the AI center of excellence or accounts. So some of those bodies that you'll build in your organization will help you have that framework. Maybe you're in the initial stages. You are actually giving yourself a space to grow, right, in this area by building some of these foundational frameworks.
Yeah, one thing make this more complicated in the sense different jurisdictions the company operate. Most company like yours operating in a global scale, having presence in almost all the countries, because the laws will be different. Let's say China, for example, or European Union, for example, is different from North America. So in an organization like yours, how do we set a global standard or best practices in operating in multiple jurisdictions?
Yeah, I always say you can't solve all the problems at once, right? And some of these things we'd have to tackle. Every industry, every company who works globally will have to tackle as they come up. So being proactive and being ready is a good way of thinking about it. That's why I feel like having some of the foundation things that work in anything, that any new, like we were talking about change management, we were talking about a risk framework. This is foundational to any new technology or new. So having those foundational stuff in your organization will make you ready for different compliance policies that get applied. Say you're working in EU or you're in Mid-East or in different countries. And then you obviously would have to maybe spin a little bit, adjust a little bit, and having, if you have your work cut out in that way, also, how does your organizational structure work, right? Do you have your data structured in a way that you could segregate the data that goes in EU, which are some of the industries are already doing that, or can you segregate it for another country, right? So thinking of those things proactively, I think, is a great idea for companies that work globally.
Great. So the things that we talked about, putting up an AI framework and putting up the governance around it, all these are great. But driving organizational change, it's equally important to ensure that AI is seamlessly integrated into the business strategies. On that, how do we incorporate AI maturity framework into the change management strategies for enterprise-wide adoption?
So for change management, obviously, you have to think of the structure of your organization, right? Your top leadership, then you're looking at your managers, how they bring in the change, then you're looking at the employee level, then you're also looking at different departments which would need different things. The way I think we should think about these adoption is focusing on each area and how we call it looking at a work stream or looking at a department and how they could benefit from the AI tools. I think that's how you make it translated for them. I think it's very important for whenever someone's trying to adopt, be it technology or a tool or anything, or even a process for that matter, what it means to me and what it'll bring to me is very important. So bringing all of that thought process into your implementation would be very good for adoption and change.
And how do organizations track this process, change management process? Are there any metrics or KPIs at the moment?
So I think different, like I said, every organization will have different goals. If you tie your metrics with your goals, what you want to achieve, and then create success metrics based on that and keep measuring yourselves periodically against those goals and metrics, that's the best way to do it. Like we said, it may mean different things to different companies, right? Some may be focusing internally to bring more productivity to their employees versus others maybe focusing more on the product that they're selling. If adding the AI integration, what value that it brings. So you'd have to measure that a little bit differently. But I think constantly being in touch with your audience that you're delivering your tool to, internal or external, is very important. Like we said, the frameworks are still evolving. So what it means to each individual is going to be very important.
Are we following the framework for change management as well?
Of course, change management framework applies almost everywhere. I think in any of your adoption journey, I always feel like there's a 20-80 rule here. Your 80% success is going to be how solid your change management framework is. 20% is whatever else you put in. So yes, having a good change management framework, what are we bringing? Why are we bringing the success metrics, the ROI, how we measure it? What is the feedback loop? When do we say, okay, this is enough, right? Have we done our right POCs? All of that is part of your change management process.
Yeah, Archana, we're at the top of the hour. And what advice do you give to CXOs and executive leaders looking to accelerate their AI adoption journey?
I think the biggest thing I would say is bringing the culture. That's very important. If you're trying to think of building tools, AI tools for your external customers, focus internally first as well. So bringing the culture internally will actually reflect on what you do externally as well. Focusing on upskilling. There's a lot of concern with an employee about AI will take away my job and things. Take work helping your employees upskill on certain AI related skills and making them feel more confident about it, and overall bringing the cultural change is going to go a long way.
Yeah, one of my biggest takeaways is the importance of having clear purpose behind AI adoption. It's not just about implementing technology, but aligning it with business goals to create real value. I'm glad you touched upon AI governance, balancing rapid advancement with ethical practices and regulatory compliances. Ultimately, successful AI adoption is it's more than just about technology. It's about fostering a culture of change, equipping people with the right skills, and ensuring leadership drives the vision forward. Thank you, Archana, for sharing your insights and experience. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious and keep pushing the boundaries of what AI can achieve. Thank you. If you like today's podcast, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. Your feedback is important. We always look for comments and recommendations to improve. This show is available on Apple Podcast, Google, and SoundCloud. Please do subscribe. Plus, you can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and on YouTube. You can find the links to these pages in the show notes or by visiting us at AISuccessFactors.com. We publish episodes bi-weekly on Wednesdays. Please be sure to tune in for the next episode. Thank you and see you next time.